This is the Xeon E5 2630 V4, and in 2016, this processor was released with an MSRP of almost $700. For reference, that is $200 more than the MSRP of the best gaming CPU in the world right now. 10 years later, this Xeon can be found on eBay for $4, making it worth less than a Big Mac. With its 10 cores and 20 threads, this Xeon and many others were made to be used in servers or workstations. While this guy was slaving away for some corporation, I was discovering for the first time that I was not a content creator prodigy.
So there we go. No, I was not picking my nose, I was scratching it.
When all of these corporations upgraded their hardware, they dumped an endless amount of processors into the market. Since there are so many of them, they now go for incredibly cheap. But the question we're aiming to answer in this video is, can you actually play games on this CPU in 2025? And if you can, is it an actual viable option for a budget gaming rig? Here I have the Xeon 2630 V4 paired with an X99 motherboard. The benefit of this motherboard over something like an X79 is that we can actually pair it with DDR4 RAM instead of DDR3, which I have opted to add 16 gigabytes of. And I was easily able to get all of this for $60 off AliExpress. This X99 motherboard is quite lacking in features. It has no USB 3.0 on its rear I/O, its VRMs are incredibly minimal, and it only provides the bare necessity. Despite all this, I was happy to find that there were 4 DIMM slots due to this platform's support for quad channel, and there was an M.2 slot for me to add an NVMe SSD. Finding a cooler for this CPU was actually a lot harder than I thought it'd be. There's not a lot of mainstream coolers that support this old LGA 2011 socket, but I chose the Assassin King 90 for $25 from Thermalright, who is slowly becoming one of my favorite companies for PC cooling. That's right, this cooler is worth 6 times the cost of the CPU that it's gonna mount. Installing this cooler is probably gonna be interesting. Never actually installed a cooler on a 2011 socket. So here's the heatsink, which as you can see, there's like these screws on the bottom, these two, which don't go anywhere. So yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know if I'm onto something or onto nothing, but this screw definitely does not fit. I'm looking at it. Oh, is this cooler not going to be compatible? Yeah, no, I don't know what I'm doing. Does this go in here? Okay, hold on. This in. And this one. That's probably fine. Now do I put this thing on? Oh, it's all coming together like that. Boom. Hello, that's done. Okay, we're gonna do a test mount. And I know this build's probably gonna be white themed, and this is like the blackest cooler that's ever blacked. Wait, the heat spreader on this thing is pretty big, so I'm gonna be a little more generous with the thermal paste. Forget to take off the plastic. Boom, look at that, look how shiny that is. Oh yeah, that's tight, is what he said. Okay, that's one side. There we go. And the other side. For the GPU, I wanted to choose something that someone might realistically pair with this CPU if they were to build a budget rig, which is why I will be adding the RX 580 8GB from AMD. Powering this PC is this 80 plus bronze 500 watt unit from Ares Game. This power supply is actually rated tier F on the PSU tier list with the note replace immediately. And I definitely recommend spending a bit extra to get a more reliable unit for your own build, but I've used a bunch of these before with no issues, and if it explodes, at least it'll be for content. This rig will be enclosed in the Vetro M5, a pretty nice looking white case for $50. And with that, this build came out to $250 after tax, which is pretty good considering we're using all new parts except for the CPU and GPU. I wholeheartedly believe you could replicate this with ease for maybe less than $200 if you go used for more components. So let's circle back to the big question of this video. Can you game on a $4 CPU? The PC is done. I don't think it looks too bad. I think it looks better than the average PC that might cost $250. It doesn't look like it has a $4 CPU in it, but should we see how it looks with the lights and also test to see if it'll turn on at all? Here we go. I think we can, ooh, look at that. You guys a little pan around. Pretty decent looking PC, but how does it perform? So while the benchmarks run in the background, let's take a moment to talk about them. The very first thing I did was run a stress test on the system using Unigine Heaven. I know Unigine Heaven is pretty outdated at this point, but it's my favorite stress testing tool so far. Really easy to use, and the PC performed about as well as I expected it to. Next up, I decided to benchmark this PC using CS2 and Fortnite. And the reason I decided to choose these two games is because these two games are known to be quite CPU intensive as compared to GPU intensive. We already know about how well the RX 580 is going to perform, and what we're really investigating is how far we can push the Xeon. For CS2, I couldn't get MSI Afterburner to work, but there is a on-screen FPS counter, and on all high settings, we got about 130 to 140 FPS, but the gameplay was a bit stuttery, which I attribute to the Xeon not being able to keep up at times, but all around it was still a very playable experience. Fortnite was actually pleasantly surprising. I guess CS2 is quite a bit more intensive than the original CSGO because Fortnite actually ran much better. We were playing on pro settings, so all graphics on low and render distance on epic at 100% 3D resolution, and we were able to maintain about 140 to 160 FPS comfortably with almost no stutters at all. We can clearly see that when paired with a decent GPU, the Xeon is able to keep up. So yes, you can actually game on a $4 CPU, but should you? And my own opinion for that is actually no. While you have to admit that it's hard to beat the price of the performance of this chip, the money you end up saving costs you a lot of modern features, and support from Intel for this Xeon ended 3 years ago. This CPU and motherboard together cost $40, but if you're in the budget where you're going to consider something like this, I'd highly recommend scrapping together $40 more and going for something like a B450 and Ryzen 5 2600. A little more money than that and you can start to consider the 3600 or 5500. A big reason why I recommend all of these AMD chips is because they're all on AM4, which is such a legendary platform for upgradability. You can stick something as powerful as the Ryzen 7 5700X3D into any AM4 socket with the proper BIOS support and be up and running with an incredibly strong processor. The Xeon, you're pretty much stuck with this thing. A newer platform will also be more power efficient, better thermals, you'll be able to handle higher RAM speeds, USB 3.0, sometimes offering compatibility with USB-C or PCIe 4.0. While you could get an X99 board with USB 3.0 and better VRMs, it'll cost you a lot more and just isn't worth it. Nevertheless, I've been wanting to play with a Xeon chip for a while now, and it was fun to see old tech still be able to keep up in a system running modern software. We live in a world where tech is improving at such a rapid rate, and we're always looking forward to the next upgrade, and we often forget to appreciate exactly where we came from.